I intend to speak in support of defunding Obamacare until I am no longer able to stand. Most Americans could not give a flying flip about a bunch of politicians in Washington. Redneck rule number one: most things can be fixed with duct tape and extension cords. I'm a big fan of eating White Castle burgers. I would not eat green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam, I am.
That, of course, Tom's best friend, Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas, using green eggs and ham, White Castle burgers, which we all love, by the way.
Only if he hires him will he be his best friend.
Yeah, that's right. And also duct tape, which always has a purpose. He even did that one to you. All making this point about Obamacare, that even though health care reform was voted on by Congress, I think we all forget about that, upheld by the High Court and the subject of a presidential election, that's not good enough. And the rules somehow different when it comes to Obamacare. How different? Andrew, let's go through a little tutorial.
Well, we tried to find a way that Senator Cruz would appreciate with the green eggs and ham and the redneck rules there. Civics can be confusing, as can government processes. If only there was an easy-to-understand guide about how bills, like healthcare reform, become laws. We all know how a bill usually becomes a law.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill.
He signed your bill. Now you're a law.
Oh, yes.
But that's not the end of the story for healthcare reform, not when Republicans have tried to shred it or crush it in vote after vote, or as they're doing now, find some other way to make it just go away. That drop never ends. It just keeps going.
You know what I love? You guys say it's constitutional. And what I get a kick out of is when they passed the bill, they said it wasn't a tax. And when they defended it, and the only reason it's constitutional was it's a tax.
Right. They don't talk about that, though.
But it's a tax.
And the Republican appointee on the Supreme Court actually, because the Republicans on the court are the only ones who can change their minds once in a while. It's the Democrats who are lockstep about we're going to go with the party line, and that's the way we're going to do it. And it's the Republicans on issue after issue who look at something and say, and Robert said, it's a tax. It's okay.
Hang on, I'm just checking. No, it's still a law.
Yeah.
Still a law. Still on the books.
Doesn't mean that just because it's a law doesn't mean you can defund. You can't defund it.
Maybe 60% of the people, and poll after poll, say bad idea.
Bad idea.
What do you do about that? You change it.
Maybe if we just say it's not a signature issue for this president, he didn't get it done, then maybe they'll be happy and they'll go along with it.
He got reelected. It's a bad law, Dominic.
Maybe if we take the credit away from Obama, then maybe they'll
See,
go
you know,
behind
the
this.
fact that you think that is utterly ridiculous.
Oh, I think that. I guess what?
Dominic,
I guarantee the American people think the same thing.
Dominic, he can't run
again. So why are you guys? I didn't see you. But I didn't see you fight us about the law.
I got a practical question.
You guys, I'll put you back. I shouldn't do this because I like you both, but I'll put you back in Washington anyway. There are parts of this legislation that even the administration, now that it's either beginning to be implemented or whatever, acknowledge aren't perfect. In fact, I think they probably, if without the cameras on, would say are far from perfect. Wouldn't a better approach that I think the White House would go along on would be to address the certain portions of it? Nobody thinks the old way with 50 million people uninsured was a good thing for America, unsustainable and everything else. So if you can accept it with a law, there's some components of it.
I think that'll be the outcome.
Perfect. Let's negotiate.
But you do it at the end of a gun. That's my point.
No, but I think Republicans said get rid of it, and the president said no way, and I think you're going to see it revised. That's what I think.
But all of the rhetoric has been kill this bill, repeal and replace, and kill this bill.
How else do you get their attention, Andrew?
Well, how about floating an amendment that says, I'd like to change the bill to do this specifically, and here's the problem.
There must be 40 of those.
Right.
Those amendments. We passed one when I was in Congress every week.
They're there. They've done it. You don't report on it, though.
Reed's office. Okay. They never move off the desk. They never even go to committee.
Again, what drives me crazy is the process. You guys are focused on the policy of it. But the process that the folks there are saying, and I know you guys, you're just probably trying to drive me crazy, you wouldn't do what they're doing right now.
Wait a second, he just said that they had bill after bill that they passed for
that's amendments to do part of it. He went through the legislative process. He didn't threaten to say, you know what, you give me what I want or I pull
So wait a second, so why didn't you on your show, why didn't you report that on your show to say The Republicans offered a common sense amendment to this program and highlight it. You don't do that. The only time you highlight it is when we put the gun out there and say, we're going to blow your brains out if you don't fix this
So
mess.
why are you putting the gun out there to begin with?
Because you don't pay attention to the reasonable amendments.
Okay, so Democrats are going to do the same thing? I mean, come on, Congressman. You guys have been there in Washington. Come on. You're holding a gun.
I have a more simple analogy.
Bravo.
Let's go back a few
We have
years.
a very simple
What
thing
if-
here.
what-
This bill was sent to the Senate. Has Reid put it into committee? Has he started negotiations? He said no.
Well, first of all,
Like an extortionist. He said
he
no.
couldn't have
He
extorted
is
it. It became law because people voted on it. Okay? And then there was election that I hate to remind everybody about, that the public, if
had
they hated it so much,
prohibition, we had a
could
lot
have
of
picked Mitt
things. We
Romney.
changed.
Wait, I'm misunderstanding. What? So if you create a law, you can't change it or you can't repeal it?
Of course you can change it.
And you can repeal it.
If you can get the votes to do
Okay,
it.
but what you don't do is, you don't say, imagine, go back a few years when you're at Congress, and the war became unpopular to take all the polls here. Let's say all of a sudden the Democrats said, you know what? We're not going to fund this thing anymore. We're gonna pull the plug here.
That's what we did in Vietnam.
Okay, but what if they did that?
No, that's what they did in
In
Vietnam.
effect, if they didn't get their way, they would put in harm's way Americans. Now, in a different way, I'm not comparing the war front to the general economy, although we can go through many specific examples about what happens if the government shuts down, including vets not getting their checks and a whole bunch of other things. But that's extortion.
No,
now, I don't remember, at least in recent years, somebody doing that. That's not what we send people to Congress to do, to say you either do it my way or I'm going to screw the whole government.
Well, isn't the president saying the same thing? He's saying.
But the
he's saying-
problem with
no,
your
no,
analogy
stop.
is it passed Congress.
No, that's not the problem.
And it became law.
No, the problem is he's basically saying my way or the highway. Both sides are saying that. Let's at least be honest about that.
But where I still disagree, and I'm trying not to get into semantics, I apologize if I am, is it went through the legislative process. The Founding Fathers set it up where we had the legislative branch got to vote. It wouldn't even get to his desk unless it passed through Congress, and it did.
And you had a Republican Congress that got reelected who advocated repealing it.
Well, we blew out 40-something Democrats who voted for
2010.
Obamacare.
Okay. The problem is you didn't win the Senate, though. Okay.
Or the White House.
Or the White House.
That's
And
true.
those are those
So that's
that's the
what-
little thing
now-
called the executive
that's-
branch.
that's
So
why you
we
have
should roll
negotiations.
over?
No, but it's you would like to make changes to this one law, but at the expense of everything else, it seems. I mean, as opposed to just fighting the fight on the basis of I would like to make changes or I would like to repeal Obamacare, it's impacting the government's operation, it's impacting the debt limit, it's impacting so many other pieces of legislation. To hold one.
Andrew, why is it, how many days did the United States Senate, controlled by the Democrats, go without passing a budget? How
Which
many?
is material how?
Material and how? You talk about.
It's almost over 3 years.
Right. I mean, so you're telling me that this is the government of action that knows how to do things? I'm hearing Richard tell us that we're the problem there? That somehow the system's broken?
No.
Richard, where is the show about the United States Senate not passing a budget for 3 years?
The government still was funded. We still have.
So that's okay. So as long as everything's funded, it's okay in your book. But the process that he's complaining about, the U.S. Senate cannot pass a budget. What corporation, what local government would survive?
What was
It's a
the
joke.
impact of the U.S. Senate not passing a budget? What shut down? What didn't get funded? What didn't happen?
Is that so? Just because things aren't funded, that means it's okay.
Just because the government operates and functions makes it okay.
Here's my thing.
That's a hell of a way to run a company.
The fallacy
As
of what
opposed
you're
to?
throwing out here is there's this willing Republican Party who's reached out with open arms to
No,
this
don't
president
get-
since
don't
he's
get-
gotten
don't-
in
don't
here.
get carried away.
I'm going to get a little cute here because your supposition is that it takes two to tango and the president's basically given the Heisman to Republicans. Same party, by the way, you talked about whether he was a legitimate president to begin with, a U.S. citizen,
Oh boy,
and
now
everything else.
you're really going
Right.
back and
Am I really,
I
though?
mean you're the same party and your members call him Bush Hitler. So I mean, are we really digging into that nonsense?
And do you think that they didn't deserve to be condemned for doing it?
Okay.
They weren't given
I didn't
leadership.
hear a lot
They
of
also didn't-
condemnation.
They didn't steer the direction
Okay,
of the party.
can I just say
Oh,
that
boy.
there will not be a government shutdown, there will not be a default, but what would be really helpful is the two sides, which have both staked out, I'm not giving an inch, I'm not giving an inch, come together.
Okay. Do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah.
That is the process.
Right.
Or it should be.
Should be.
What is the expression before we go to break? The role of the House and the Senate, the saucer and the cup. How does it work? That it's supposed to be the more cooling agent, the U.S. Senate?
You know, I don't buy that. I think I think the Senate is a joke. Unanimous consent, one senator can kill a bill.
Right.
Crazy.
You with him?
Very, very much so.
Okay.
You should have them on more
I was
often.
going to call him a horse's rear end, but I decided
Hey,
not to.
yeah. All right, when we come back here, I want to talk about the politics and the practicality of how this thing all plays out. Because at the end of the day, as much as we would hope there's about this principle and maybe a little bit of policy, a whole lot of politics going on as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back.